I'm Rosie. I am the director of Filth Florist. So we are a flower studio. We're based in South East London, but we work across the UK. We deliver weddings, events, Valentine's Day, Mother's Day, uh, like floristry, all with a kind of like, I always say our work is floristry that performs as artwork. So we're like a bespoke studio, so every single piece of work that we create is completely unique. We don't do anything cookie cutter. Yeah, and it's actually it's pretty much 3 years old almost today, so
Okay, amazing. So did you start up in COVID or like the aftermath of COVID?
yeah, during COVID, yeah,
How
yeah.
did you find that? Was that quite challenging in itself?
Uh, I mean, I wouldn't have started Filth without COVID having happened. Basically, I was unemployed during COVID, like lots of people were, and my mum is a florist, so I was kind of trained, like enough to kind of know the basics. And during the second Oh, oh yeah, wait, no, yeah, during the second lockdown, so the one in January, the really bleak one, I set up Filth with a view that I would start delivering like weekly bouquets around London to begin with. Kind of with the view that I had nothing to lose. Like I was on the dole anyway, I had no money. So it just felt like let's just give it a go. There's nothing to lose. I think I was massively benefited, certainly in the beginning, by the fact that everyone was on their phone so much. So I like quite quickly um, like accrued a fair amount of followers, and also I think, to be honest with you, at that point, everyone's disposable income wasn't going to the pub or going out, so everyone had disposable income that they would then use to send like bouquets to friends and family, and I think that people had that kind of money. Um, so yeah, it was weird starting it in COVID, but it also means that the business has changed quite a lot because when I first started it, obviously there were no weddings or events, and I was just doing the weekly bouquets, and then over the last 3 years, we've kind of turned. Well, no, actually now we are pretty much just a wedding and event studio. Like we do Valentine's Day and like Mother's Day and that kind of thing, but yeah, the business has actually changed a lot from what it looked like 3 years ago. Um, and I kind of wonder if it would have changed that much actually if it hadn't been COVID. Do you know what I mean? I think the amount it shifted in 3 years is probably quite a lot for a business. Yeah.
Amazing. So with all of that in mind, like what do you think your biggest achievement has been so far?
Um. I think my biggest achievement is that I have built a business that is sustainable, that actually works as a business, which is maybe like a really obvious point, but it's really difficult to do it actually. I think also I got my first proper studio in December, which was like a huge like move for me. And I think also, yeah, having like staff members as well is like obviously a big like milestone. So actually, do you know what? There's been a lot of achievements.
Well, it's good to celebrate like all of them, isn't it? As you said, setting up a business isn't an easy thing to do in itself. So that in itself is a huge achievement. But it's easy to overlook that and try and like narrow down and pick something that isn't necessarily, I don't know, something smaller than that when actually that's a massive achievement.
Yeah.
What do you think your biggest struggle has been?
Um, oh, there's been so many. And there will be so many as yeah. I think um so two come to mind, both of them are financial actually. One um one is that the cost of flowers has increased dramatically because of COVID and because of the energy crisis. It means that the I don't know what the percentage increase has been, but I honestly think it must be like 30-40% inflation, which is
Yeah.
insane in the space of the last 3 years, which is not much time at all. So that's really difficult because the knock-on effect is huge, and trying to communicate that to people as well is not that easy. So that has been really difficult. Because obviously that money has to be passed on some, like you still have to be able to make a profit. Um, and that, what was it? Oh, that has been really difficult. Oh, like running. I think all small businesses go through kind of peaks and troughs, but I think especially since becoming a wedding and event florist, we have really, really, really busy periods and then really, really quiet periods. So, like for example, at the minute it's pretty quiet. So I think both financially, actually, and psychologically managing those like really big shifts in pace is really difficult and continues to be really difficult.
Yeah, I can imagine, like, because flowers are nice to get, but I guess you do have those very like major events like wedding season and I guess Valentine's Day and Mother's Day. But yeah, January is not a very flowery season that you don't necessarily think of it. But you mentioned the cost of living crisis. So you've kind of gone into that a little bit already about the cost of flowers and stuff. Have you noticed any other ways that it's affected your business? Like, have you kind of had to change any way that you're running your business because of it, or the energy crisis as well?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, like really moving into the weddings and events side of it and not doing the weekly bouquets is as a direct result of that huge increase in flower costs and other kind of like material costs. Um, I would probably still be doing it if flowers hadn't increased so much in price. But the margins are just so small now, that it's like not a financially viable like income stream. So I guess that is, yeah, quite a big change. Uh, yeah.
Okay. And then so when you said about the slower months, like for example January, so how do you cope with those, and do you use that time to kind of catch up on admin, or do you have other
Yeah,
things that you're experimenting with?
yeah. I mean, try not to go crazy. No, I'm joking. I think so. I think because we're now like a wedding and event studio,
Yeah.
we I'm working on really quite long timelines. So
Hmm.
the winter months especially will be a lot of like consultation, planning, meetings with clients for, like 2025 now. Like, so I just try and like really like capitalize on the time that I have so that then in the summer when we're actually delivering work, I'm not super stressed about like having to have loads of meetings. So I try and like load the year like that basically
Yeah.
now.
I guess in the summer, especially, it must get pretty hectic. So it must be kind of nice in a way to have that downtime to prepare.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely. So what's your favorite part about running a business, if you could pick like one thing?
My favorite part about running a business is it is actually working for myself and being able to manage my time however I want. Like the freedom that you get from that is huge. Obviously, there are other downsides for not having a salary. And I think we're getting to work in something creative. Yeah, getting to work in something creative actually, like again, it's a really obvious answer, but it means that I have been able to build something sustainable that is creative and speaks to that part of my personality.
Mm,
Uh, yeah.
amazing. And then you mentioned staff earlier. So how do you kind of keep them motivated if they're having like an off day or something like that?
Yeah, I mean, so I have freelancers. Most people who work for florists are freelance, obviously because of the nature of the like differing work schedules throughout different times of the year. So we have actually we have a very close working team because the kind of three core people who work with me, there's kind of I have a pool of like six freelancers, but the kind of three core I trained myself. So we are all extremely close. I think I work really hard to create a working environment that is actually like really loving, actually is a word that I use a lot, and supportive. So in the sense of like being motivated, I think there's like less. of a chance for like a dip in that, because we all get on so well. Like I would, I don't think this necessarily works with every business model, but I would consider them my friends now. And there's loads of room for making mistakes, for not getting things right, for like, I would say we just start again. Literally doesn't matter. Allowing loads of time for staff, which is a bit of a controversial one in like wedding and event floristry, because generally everything's on a really tight time frame. But I just work really hard to allow for like extra breathing room. So especially if like people have been trained, it means that they just have like more space. Yeah, I guess time is really important, actually. God, what a dead take is that. Time is important. Christ.
Well, it's a very like underrated thing to say, because it's one of those big things that people overlook, isn't it? But no, definitely that's a great answer. So what are you most excited about in the future? Like, do you have any plans to expand or take on more freelancers, or kind of like dabble with like workshops or anything like that?
Yeah, I used to do more workshops than I do now. So there's some of that planned for this year. In terms of expanding, I want to, so the sort of wedding stream of the business is pretty well established now. At the minute, I'm working more on building the kind of, the brand side of it. So like working with brands, I want to do more like set design, more like brand activation stuff, with kind of like, I don't know, it's probably better angled towards like beauty and fashion. So I'm starting to like try and build that branch of it at the minute. Yeah, keep going, I guess.
That sounds really interesting though, kind of like working within like fashion and that kind of thing. I guess that's another thing you don't really think of like as a florist. You think of like a shop, and that's where you go for, Mother's Day, birthdays, that kind of thing. When you said you're working with brands and stuff, like, do you use technology and social media to kind of market yourself, or is it word of mouth? Like, what's your kind of main form of marketing?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question. And so certainly, like I was saying, when I began, social media was like, it was Instagram basically. That was how I built a platform, basically for free. It does work as like free advertising. So that it definitely built very strongly. Like that was where it started with. I do get a lot of work through word of mouth. Which is something that I feel like, a lot of people say. It's like, it is interesting that even in this age of technology and of kind of endless visual media at our disposal, I still get a lot of work through word of mouth. And actually I guess that makes sense, but that happens more kind of exponentially, I suppose, because the more people who work with you, the more people they tell their friends about. And, like, it's starting to happen that if I've done someone's wedding, someone who was a guest there or their family member will then get in touch with me. And that's really nice, actually. I mean, obviously I love Instagram, and it's like a vital tool for me, but it is still really nice when I get an email from someone being like, oh, I know this person, they've mentioned you. That is still really lovely. So a bit of both.
Yeah, that's a really cool answer. And so like, if somebody was starting their own business and they were going to ask you for some advice, what's the kind of nugget of advice you would give them?
um do you know what? And this is funny that you're asking me this question. When you start a business, people will give you advice left, right, and center, often unsolicited, actually, especially from men as well.
Yeah, I can
Will
imagine.
actually will give you advice left, right, and center. What you do, how you would do it, how they would do it. You don't have to listen. You just don't. Like, um, I think like you will know your business best, and obviously there is a time and a place to ask people for advice, but people will dish it out like there is no tomorrow, and you don't have to listen. Is what I would say.
That's really cool because nobody's actually ever given that answer before, that you don't actually have to take advice from people if you don't want to. So yeah, that's a really kind of alternative piece of advice in itself.
So funny. So funny you say, what advice would you give? And I'm saying,
Like none.
don't listen to me.
No, I love it. It's really different, and it's an honest opinion, and it's true in some cases. So it's really cool. Yeah, so why do you think it's important to support small businesses like yourself rather than go, to a supermarket and buy a bunch of flowers, for example?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is like a huge conversation that we've seen. I mean, yeah, actually, maybe since COVID, this like real shift towards like thinking about where our money goes and where we put our pounds. And I think, you know, there are obvious answers, which are that you are spending money with people for whom it will literally pay their bills, rather than going into the pocket of billionaires, which is true. I think it also means, I think, especially for businesses like mine that are creative, you're investing in a kind of belief in creativity and in craftsmanship, and in time, um, and in acknowledging that in a kind of more transparent chain of spending money, where you understand where the money is going, and to say this is worth it. Do you know what I mean? Like, I mean, the supermarket flower thing is difficult. Like, I have nothing against little tulips. Nothing. They're in my house all the time. But the difference between that, which has a purpose, and that's great, and the kind of flowers that we source, the hours that we spend designing, creating, thinking, for me personally, the hours that I'll spend sitting on my sofa at night being like, oh, there's that wedding coming up. What if we did this? That is all part of what you pay for, and that is the work of love that Lidl can't offer you. And, both those things have their place. But yeah, by spending money with businesses like me, then it's an acknowledgement of that, and a kind of reciprocity of that as well, which is really beautiful and actually is really meaningful, I think.
Yeah, definitely. And I think when you're a small business owner and you're taking that care and effort, the passion that you have for your own business kind of shines through as well. So it probably shines through in the flowers that you're putting together and the delicate way that you're kind of arranging them. But yeah, I think that's awesome.
Yeah, and I think, we all get it. That, like, not just with flowers, but like even I don't know, when you buy something from a small business and it comes like wrapped in tissue paper, and like it's got a little handwritten note, and you've only spent like, a fiver with them. Like, we all know that feeling of just like knowing that there's yeah, it's something to do with care, isn't it? And time again. Um like, we all know that feeling. We're like, oh, that's so nice that they've written a little note, even though all I
Yeah,
bought was
it's
a pair
like
of
the
earrings.
finishing touches in a way that they put on, and they, like bigger chains probably don't need to do that and don't really think about those things either. But yeah, definitely. So my final question is, if you could go back to the start of your business journey, would you change anything, or are you happy with how you did everything?
Would I change anything? Um, I think, and this is something that I think I'm still learning to do, and I think maybe we all do it a bit, but like, trusting the process a bit more, um, and knowing that like getting going and giving something as a go is better than waiting for it to be a final, finished, crafted thing, which, maybe is impossible anyway. So yeah, just like trusting that it will come good. And actually, if it doesn't, whatever, like, you did it and you gave it a blooming good go. And, you know, yeah, I know a lot of small businesses who ran during the pandemic and then for whatever reason stopped, I guess because people went back to their normal jobs or furlough, whatever. And actually, that's not a failure. Like, you gave it a good go, you put something into the world that was completely from you, which is really, really brave. Um, so yeah, like, trust the process, and even if it all goes wrong, whatever.
Yeah, no, that's great advice. I love it.